Sorry. Yeah, might as well. You don't really see a line out there. Is that a mic?
Oh, yeah. What they doing?
All right, y'all, make sure you have a beer. We're going to get started in about 1 minute.
This will work as well.
All right, let me see a show of hands. Who was here 2 weeks ago for Boulder Startup Week Analyze Boulder? I love you guys. Thank you for coming back so quick. All right, thank you guys so much for being here. First off, thank you to my organizers. I know last time we announced that Jennifer was stepping down because she just has way too much international travel and snowboarding to do. Really, really tough life. But now we are losing Justin. This is his last time here. He's moving to Moab. He and Jennifer were the founding, should I say mom and dad? Is that weird? That is totally weird. Hey, founding daddy. I did it. He is working remote and has the opportunity to go to Moab, so why not save some money and look at beautiful, beautiful things? So what I want all of you guys to do is give him a hug for starting this. He's gonna love it and hate it, and I love that. Thank you for starting this and for everything. I will not cry. I'm Tony. Our other organizers are Greg and Eric. Let me see a wave from you guys. And our brand new social media expert, what should I call you? Social media engineer? That's funny. Patty, get away. If you guys have been coming here for a while, you'll know that I have often called her out, made fun of her, and called her our resident extrovert. So now you're going to see even more of Patty's extroversion. It's going to be awesome. A big, huge shout out to Galvanize. Through the 5 years that we have existed, we have been to many places and we kept outgrowing them. However, Galvanize was able to sustain us and hosts us regularly. Get on the mailing list out there. Development. They have a bunch of boot camps. Check those out. Tonight, I called the evening Pipes Carry Water. Tonight we are going to be listening to Timothy Salazar talking about water quality problems. We also have Jim Moffett, who will be showing us a demo of flooded Twitter, and you'll find out what that means as soon as he gets up here. And lastly, we have Alex Wolford, who will be talking about pipelines of data, not of water. All right, and so my favorite part, definitely not my favorite part of the evening. We are currently going to Liquor Mart and literally buying beer and bringing it on over here. So I see a lot of you guys have donated to the beer fund, and we really, really appreciate it. That kind of keeps us afloat, and often the free beer availability keeps new people coming. So thank you for helping us keep a living and breathing awesome community by donating and buying us beer. This is my favorite part, almost. Aside from meeting once a month or, May and June being 2 weeks apart, we keep in touch with Slack. We help each other get jobs through LinkedIn. If you're brand new here, take a picture of this slide, give me an email, and I will get you on Slack, or any developers out there that want to be able to just fill out a type form, create a type form for us, and have people automatically enrolled in Slack. That would be great. Talk to me. I don't have to do it manually anymore. And Twitter, of course, @Boulder, anytime, anywhere. Ask us questions, make comments, tease me if you feel like it. Not that kind of tease. Okay. So other events. I know we were just here 2 weeks ago, but June is amazing. So what else is going on? Are there hackathons? Are there amazing, cool things that you want to share? Or are you guys going to keep it all to yourselves? We're going to send the mic around. I can start. If you guys know what Go Code Colorado is, if not, it is a yearly competition, and these people have been working for 8 weeks. They have the finale tomorrow. It's a free event. There's food and drinks. But they are literally giving away $45,000, $15,000 each to 3 winners. So if you want to see their pitches and what they've been able to come up with in 8 weeks, I highly recommend Go Code Colorado. I'll be there. Any other events? Announcements, maybe? Oh, Abby.
Yeah, there's a great workshop put on by Unidata. It's one of the groups out of NCAR. It's called Reducing Cloud to Science, Evolving Workflows for Geoscience Research and Education. We have a lot of work, actual hands-on AI modeling. It's basically a free version or cheap version of JupyterCon. So it's NCAR's version of that. So I think it'll be a really interested in community, I'll be there presenting a poster also.
Nice.
Hi, my name is Kristen Larson, and I'm also a volunteer for Colorado Rising, which has the ballot initiative to increase the setbacks from oil and gas wells from 500 feet to 2,500 feet. So if you're interested in signing the petition and you're registered to vote in Colorado and you haven't signed it yet,
In other words, you haven't moved to Moab.
I have the clipboards here, so see me afterwards.
Any other announcements or events? Somebody having a barbecue? I want to go to your backyard.
I'm not having a barbecue.
Dang it!
But I am talking at the Da Vinci Institute about AI, blockchain, and the future of work. Anyone wants to come, fill some space.
When is that?
Monday night,
Nice.
Da Vinci Institute, they're up in,
It's Louisville, right? Off.
no, they're
Baseline,
up
they
in,
moved.
Brookfield. So, 6 o'clock, I believe. At least that's what I'm doing.
Sorry, I'm late. Is anyone going to be in Boston the week of the 18th? Okay.
What?
Science in the Age of Experience. The company I work for, Dassault Systems, has a big user conference, and it's science in various industries. I'm in the life sciences biz, so it's all about machine learning, predictive analytics, and all that good stuff as it applies to drug manufacturing, drug discovery, things like that. So you are the only person that would care about it.
I like drug discovery. Just kidding.
This isn't on meetup.com yet or anything like that, but it's just a word of mouth attempts to pull together marketers who want to be truly data driven about what we're doing. And I'm finding I'm actually just getting back into digital marketing these days. There's a lot of buzzwords, and nobody's really applying data science, especially for small business. So I've got a few people together at this point. If you want to chat more about meeting up later in the month, see me afterwards. I'm Dan.
Dan, I want you to reach out on Slack to Richard Hackathorn.
Okay.
Awesome. Any other events? Announcements? Oh, one more, and then we'll move on to jobs. No. Announcements first. We're all about you. We're waiting on you, man.
I'm Ken Farmer of VictorOps. Hey, we're now building systems so large that the systems themselves are the subjects of data science. And I'm new at VictorOps, and I am in love with this company. It's just truly a wonderful group of people. I'm looking for a data analyst that would be a part of the QA team. They would be digging through the data and helping us do quality control and deep analysis on the data. So that sounds like something attractive to you or someone you know. Please give me a help.
Awesome.
No, I haven't seen you on the bus today, really. We're neighbors, that's how I know him.
For all of the jobs that get announced, I would love to see them on Slack, on the meetup page, on LinkedIn if you feel like it. Get it out there. Anyone else are at companies that are hiring?
Okay. Hi, I'm Kirsten. I work at Cognizant Quick Left, and it's a really awesome place to work. I really enjoy it. We're growing like crazy, and we're hiring everything from a DevOps engineer to front-end developers to product designers and UX researchers. If you just go to quickleft.com, we have all of the jobs listed there. And yeah, if you're interested, go see me afterwards.
Nice. Hi everyone, I'm Albert Wavering. I'm a digital analyst at a company here in town called Viget. We're not hiring per se, but we do have a very cool apprenticeship program where we basically take people in for 10 weeks, we pay you, and we teach you how to be a front-end and back-end engineer, data person, UXer, project management, copywriter, really any sort of digital type person. We design and build websites. If that sounds something that's cool to you, you're early on in your career, talk to you. You can check these out online at big.com/apprenticeships, or we can talk to you afterwards. The deadline for applying to that program is July 27th, but all the info is online, and I'll also be happy to chat with you about it. Thanks.
And all three of these companies are on Pearl Street.
BIGT.
Hello, my name is Angela. I'm coming in from the other side of the head today to announce a job at the company that I work at now, which is Panasonic Automotive. It's not data science per se, but we are seeking an AWS SRE/DevOps engineer. You would be part of the cloud team, which is like software engineering, 3 data scientists, and then you would be the DevOps person. So yeah, we're out with DIA actually. But there's a train stop literally a block across the street from our building, so it's a really cool place to work. And you can talk to me if you want more info. I posted on the Slack. I can post unmuted too. I just didn't know if you want to be scammed that way.
We have 2,500 people on the Any more jobs? All right, you guys ready for Timothy Salazar? Yeah! All right, he's gonna kick butt.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. If we give him a mic, hold on.
All right, cool. Okay, cool. So my name is Timothy Salazar. I was a student over at CU Boulder where I studied geography and hydrology. And then I came over here and I enrolled in the galvanized data science program. And now I'm working for a company called Sendiset that's applying machine learning to sewer inspection. So back when I was last November, when I decided what to do for my capstone, I wanted to bring my hydrology background into it a bit. And specifically, I decided I was going to apply it to something called bioassessment. Now, when I talk about assessing water quality, you probably picture someone going out and actually taking a sample of water from a body of water. Bioassessment is a little bit different. What you actually do with that is you go out and you collect organisms from the water, from the body of water, and then you look at the community composition. And that actually lets us gauge the water quality. And it has a couple of advantages over actually testing it in a laboratory. First of all, it's a lot less expensive. Second of all, it kind of gives us an idea of what the water quality looks like over time, because the organisms are in that environment all the time, whereas if you go out and you take a sample of water, that tells you what the water looks like when you take it. And it's a little bit more interpretable. Now, one of the most common groups of organisms you'll look at are benthic macroinvertebrates, or basically stream bugs. So they're bigger than algae, so you can actually see them with your naked eye, but they're really easy to collect, they're everywhere, and they're pretty sensitive to a lot of environmental conditions, contaminants and stuff you see in the water. So one of the metrics we have for community composition is something called the EPT index, which is just very simple. We're just looking at 3 orders of these benthic macroinvertebrates. Ephemeroptera, these guys, Plecoptera, these guys right here, and Trichoptera, these fellas. For my project, I also threw in Diphthera, which are also common, just so I kind of have an out group. We won't talk about it too much. Anyway, so one of the problems with these guys, and a big source of the overhead when you're trying to do this sort of bioassessment, is that they're very difficult to tell apart. Over here on the left, you have Ephemeroptera, whereas over there on the right, you have a Plecoptera. So those are very difficult to tell apart, but they're completely different orders. So when you collect these, you have to have a taxonomist go through and identify them all manually, and that takes a while. wouldn't it be nice if you had a tool that could help you with that? So I decided I'd try and do that. I went online and I scraped 8,570 images. Then I put it through a custom image processing pipeline where I cropped them all to the same size, padded them so they were square and wouldn't get distorted, and removed things like watermarks. And the tool that I thought would make most sense would be CNN, which it's kind of the go-to for image stuff. And specifically, I took a look at I used the VGG16 model as an image extractor. So what I did was I cut off this bottom layer, all the weights that they used for the VGG thing, and then I replaced it with my own dense layers, and then trained it that way. A few refinements I added on top of that was using Prelude instead of ReLU for the dense layers, which gave me a little bit of improvement. I had imbalanced classes. I had a ton of ephemeroptera, a few of the other guys, so I weighted them differently. And finally, I decided to take a few of these models. VGG16 is a pretty lightweight neural network, so I took 3 of those and used an ensemble. My results were actually pretty good. I had I forgot to put numbers on this, but I had something like 93 to 95 in pretty much all of these precision recall F1 score between orders. And then when I tried to apply it to families, it was a little less encouraging, but it was still all right considering that for between families, I had a lot fewer images. For future steps, I think that if I had more images, I would be able to get better taxonomic resolution on this. I think that this could be used to make something like a web app for either hobbyists. Last time I gave this presentation, I had some fly fishers in the audience who said they wouldn't mind having an app, or citizen scientists. And then also it would be interesting to see if I could use this for in-stream identification. Here's my information, including my GitHub, where you can take a look at this more in depth if you'd like. Does anyone have any questions?
Did you feel like that was a small corpus? I know you probably worked really hard to get the 85 numbers. It seems, intuitively, it seems to be for CNN, that's pretty small.
I thought it was a large corpus when I was scraping the images and going through them to weed out the ones I couldn't use. But yeah, I do agree. I feel like it is kind of a small corpus, and once I have a little bit more time, I definitely like to get more because, yeah, 8,000 images is a lot, but it's not, you're right, it's not a lot in the world of CNNs.
There's 8,000.
I didn't hear. I'm sure people got
Oh, wait, which part?
whatever Gary said.
Just say you're surprised that there was even 80.
Oh yeah, you were just surprised there was 8,000. Actually, I found most of them on a fly fishing website called Troutnut. So
you were discouraged by your prediction areas for families, but do you have a sense of how good taxonomists are? That could be pretty good compared to some of the taxonomists out there.
yeah, I was actually looking at some papers. The taxonomists are better than my model, definitely, but they're, I think it was somewhere in the Nordic countries, they did a study on this, and I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but their accuracy is actually a little bit less than I would have assumed. Still better than mine right now.
Any other questions? Is this something do you think you could use like for Colorado Parks and Wildlife? Maybe they could use this like to inform like what kind of bag limits they might have for different streams. Maybe like
one stream has a better collection of different species and versus others, like having less of that sort of thing?
You know, I'm not sure. I am not an ecologist.
I was wondering if you had some sense of what sort of biases you would have in data set collected from the internet as opposed to if you actually just stuck a camera in the stream. I'm thinking like, bugs having broken wings or deformities that might make it difficult for somebody who's browsing a web page to see, oh yes, this is some sort of bug.
You know, that's interesting. I hadn't really thought about that. I'm just going to say I'm not 100% sure, other than just the class imbalances, because I definitely had more of the ones that are good for fly fishing.
I was just curious how many hours you spent building your model and training it and running the results in total.
I did most of this last year for my capstone project, and the total time I had to work on it was something like 2 weeks. I spent a few days the last few weeks trying to do some improvements on this. That was when I threw in the Prelude, and I was able to bump the precision recall and F1 scores up by maybe like 0.03 or something. I do think that with more time I could fine tune it a little bit more.
Thank you so much. Thank you. All right, up next, Jim Moffitt. Is that right?
Right.
It's terrible memory. So, hey.
Thank you.
All right.
Gotta double check something real quick.
All right.
Sorry, I'm gonna lose this.
That didn't sound like clapping.
Yeah.
Thunder, which leads into my talk.
See if I can get this to work a little better. Okay.
So just for a little background, because Jim is doing a demo,
Well,
we're going to give him a hard time because we had to change the whole setup of this. So, you prepared for some teaching?
I am.
Okay, good, because you just got them.
There's no
Not with
speaker notes.
I'm gonna get this set up so that it's the same here as it is up there. If I unmirror the drawing. That's what I had before. Yeah, that's what I need. Okay.
I just made up a joke the other day. You want to hear it? It's awful.
Yeah.
It's awful. Why do... No, wait. That's probably better than you. You're stuck with me. Why do old Nazi soldiers like animals so much?
Why?
Because they're veterinarians.
Yes! I have a joke too.
Please make it better than that one. Say it.
It's kind of related to hydrology. You probably have heard it. What did the fish say when it hit the wall? Damn. It's my all-time favorite joke. So my name is Jim Moffitt. I'm a partner engineer at Twitter, and I'm here to talk tonight about flood warning systems at Twitter. For 13 years, I developed flood warning software. I joined a small company, Alliance Colorado, with 4 people in 1999. We built software that receives gauge data via radio, puts it on a map, lets you set alarm thresholds and send out notifications. We started with building Windows apps. Then we got into web development, working with Java and Python, and working with, this is many years ago, Java servlets.
Here's a screenshot from a current system. Actually, this is in operation now down at the Urban Drainage and Flood Control District in Denver. In 2012, I changed employers and joined a company called GNIP in 2012 as a developer advocate. Started to focus for the first time on social media networks and working with APIs and specifically Twitter data. So given my background, I started looking into whether there was an organic signal in tweets around that you could correlate with a physical rain gauge. A former colleague and I started looking at significant rain events from around the country, places like Santa Barbara, Las Vegas, Boulder, Louisville, Kentucky. And this is sort of an example of what we found. The top plot shows hourly rainfall for a rain gauge near the Strip in Las Vegas. The bottom line represents a set of curated filters applied to the Twitter fire hose of tweets. So queries around rain and floods and keywords like that, but geo-reference to Las Vegas. The red line below is the response we saw related to that event, and the blue line is just everyday background chatter that you'd see on a rainy day, or I mean on a sunny day, sorry. So this led to a series of blog posts where I started to evangelize about the role of Twitter in early warning systems. And the main foundation of that was talking about the core characteristics of Twitter that make it a compelling way to communicate about floods and other natural disasters. The fact that it's public, real-time, mobile-focused, it's used to share information, native photos and videos, and notifications. This is a little, who lived here in 2013? Okay, the ironic thing is the third blog post we posted came out on September 11th, 2013, around noon. So the rest of this talk is going to be about the Boulder flood specifically. At the top one is accumulated rainfall. It was measured over at the Justice Center. The middle one is stream levels over at the Broadway Bridge. And then the last one is the amount of tweets coming out during the storm. We hit a peak of 5,600 flood tweets coming out per hour. And even in the evenings, we were getting anywhere from 500 to 1,000 tweets per hour. So if you lived here at that time and you were following the Weather Service here in Boulder, you started to see tweets like this coming out, telling us that a couple days of major rainfall was coming our way. And then by 10 o'clock that night, it was becoming obvious that this was going to be an ominous historic event. And I was pretty much glued to my Twitter feed because I started seeing things like this in real time, crowdsourcing photos and videos. A lot of these are kind of iconic by now. But also after the flood, there was tons of useful information, crowdsourcing the damage that was done all over the region. And one interesting dynamic that came out of this is, here's an example of 3 different levels of government. FEMA at the federal level, the State Office of Emergency Management, and a local city, all telling the public to go to these 2 Twitter accounts to get information about what was going on the ground. And this is one of my favorite data mashups so far. This is the cumulative rainfall again. And here's a graph of the new followers to these 2 accounts. So the point is the Twitter audience can be very dynamic, and Twitter can be an effective way to kind of herd the cats and to point people to the accounts of interest for any given event. Wow, I think I'm going to have plenty of time. So I was going to do a demo, but this is something that a colleague and I put together. This is using D3, the Twitter API, also the Instagram API, because back in 2013, you couldn't share videos natively on the platform, but now you can. We use D3 leaflet, and I'm going to hopefully click this and have it. So what we did, we built this like data storyteller. You can browse around. These are all geotagged tweets with media attached to it, so videos and photos. So it sort of is a storybook of the flood. You can move through the timeline, and as you move forward, you see the red dots are for that time period that I've highlighted down here in the D3 brush. The blue lines are like shadows of the events you've already seen. You can browse out. I live in Longmont, so you can browse around and see different tweets that were shared during the event. And this has been a great way to kind of tell the story of the Boulder flood. And that's my presentation. I think I have 30 seconds to spare.
Probably.
I'm not used to talking that quickly. I had a bunch of coffee before I got here.
I'm going to be selfish and start out.
Yes.
So I actually interviewed with as a data science intern, I think, in fall 2012, but it wasn't until the Boulder flood that I really felt the power of Twitter.
Yeah.
I'm right there.
When I went from flood warning software to social media, I was like, what am I doing? Because I love the community of flood warning, just that area that's like sponsors. It's a really cool culture. And go to Twitter data, like that kind of a leap, but I've been able to kind of keep my background in flood warning relevant to my work at Twitter, so it's been great.
So I'm going to start with my usual heckler, who's an oddly quiet type.
The teasing thing. That was scary.
Uh-oh. I remember you from the big data meetup at the Twitter office.
So the comment that you first made, at least the slip of the tongue that you first made, where the baseline put up against rain event versus dry days. Have you compared flood versus just a rainfall event and what that looks like?
Well, yes. I mean, the first 10 events that I alluded to, those were not like big regional floods. We reached out to flood warning system operators in these cities and just said, hey, we really just want to know in your mind, send us some dates around a significant rain event. So, for example, the ones in Boulder were not very big storms. We looked at just, they're like vanilla late afternoon thunderstorms. But the reason, at least for the Boulder case, that we got a lot of tweets around them is because it was right after some fires and there was a lot of local concern about runoff. The ones in Vegas, kind of the same thing, but people go to Vegas, they're not, they're on vacation, they're tweeting away, taking pictures. They go to Vegas probably not expecting lots of rain, and this was a storm that was right over the strip, and so I think we just got a lot of tweets coming out because of those reasons.
So there were some cities up in the foothills that just like all communication was lost for a few hours. Like literally people like ignored that like phone lines were down and internet was down. So like you think that those people that were actually not able to tweet because they had no internet, did that affect your calculation or?
Well, yeah, I think that's definitely a factor, and I mean, but our focus was not on assessing whether we were covering the whole region. It was just really telling that story. And like, for example, Lions, there were very few tweets coming out of Lions. They all happen to be very dramatic and like photos. And so it doesn't, in my mind, for like me, somebody monitoring the event using Twitter along with other channels, it was still informative to see what could come through, but that's a huge issue. But on the other hand, like Hurricane Harvey, we had entire cell phone systems go down, but Twitter and other social media networks, in many ways, were able to still get messages out. So it runs both ways, for sure.
Do you think the Twitter data has potential to be predicted at all and be like potentially an early warning system, or is it just reactive?
Yeah, I've had that question a lot, and I really don't think so, other than maybe if you had some system in place that was detecting where tweets were coming from. But the challenge there is that most tweets are not geotagged. I will say that this type of data that I looked at with the Boulder flood, and there's even things on the Twitter platform that when you post a photo now, you have more prompts to geotag it on the way out the door. But that's a huge challenge of this area in general, is like only 1 or 2% of the tweets in the fire hose are explicitly geotagged by the user. So then you have to get into more elaborate methods of looking at the text itself. Oh, I'm in Las Vegas and it's raining cats and dogs. Well, that might be one that matches. But in terms of like predicting these events, I don't think there's a lot of utility there. But maybe for detecting something that's already happening, it's just another way to maybe pick up on something going on. That's just a general statement. Yeah.
I noticed that you went to you researched a lot of places that people wanted to visit. All but one, maybe.
And while I'm answering questions, these are examples of other integrations around flood warning that are built on the Twitter platform or informed by it.
So I want to say two things. One is I'm a third generation word person, so I'm with the eye, hurricanes, 6 times. And Twitter is essential to us. As civilization ceases, it's the last thing you hear. And as you're booting back up out of the cold dark wetness, it's the first thing. to. The other thing is, I'm trying to go really fast, so I work for a company called Epic, it's part of Nokia, here technologies, and I was places that. So every place you would ever want to navigate to in the world that is already on the planet, we spend $3 million a year collecting information from all over the world about your map. Our biggest problem is we couldn't tell when a new business opened fast enough, and when the business closed fast enough. For example, the Bradstreet data has got huge lag times because there's still insolvency or bankruptcy or whatever. But Twitter saved our butt because if there were tweets coming from a place, because we were Nokia, we could use cell phone triangulation.
Right.
It wasn't geotagged.
Yeah.
Tell anybody.
Right.
So we knew where everything was coming from. We could tell when no tweets came place business, they could kill it. We could take it out of that. New place popped up and sent somebody out. And Twitter was the best tool we had. A new business enrolled business.
Interesting.
It was a leading indicator.
Yeah.
Operationalization. What's your name? Carl? Because you've been through so many hurricanes, can I call you Six Eye Carl?
My name is Vincent, I'm just a back-end engineer, so I got a boring and then a really wild question. One question, it seems like we already have a little bit of an answer. What are the policy implications? Could we do particular or emergency threats, or how do we make this information the most interesting and effective and available? Wild question is something like have anybody working on an offline open source data gathering platform. Have you guys even considered something called like WebRTC or a peer-to-peer network to get vital information where the satellites are?
Yeah, I mean, to that last one, just from my experience in this domain of flood warning, I know that's a big topic, local area networks. How do you handle, because a lot of the traditional networks for gauges, for example, are line of sight radio, and that's not always so great. What was the first part of your question? Oh, about how can you make this more effective, really, in a way, or? Yeah, I think key things that I preach about and evangelize about is these agencies who are focused on flood warning is really coaching the public. A huge portion of the public doesn't know what Twitter is and even how to use it. And beyond that, they're not coached on how to geotag their tweets and but also it's important for these agencies to say, hey, if you do tweet something and you geotag it, it's a photo of something you think is important for us to know, do know that we are listening. But the other part of that is a lot of these agencies today don't have a lot of the skills or they don't have the resources to build, because listening to Twitter in a focused way has its challenges. There's things like TweetDeck, but other tools. But if you had I truly believe if you had a software engineer intern for a summer, you could build a system that could listen to geotag-based tweets. But on the flip side of that, teaching the public to do these things, to share, to crowdsource this information in a way that you can actually use.
Just two quick things. Yeah. So it depends on the geotagging. Can you not take the IP, or is the IP of a tweet not recorded?
It's not. I mean, all the tools I use for this analysis was really, I'm a customer-facing engineer, so I dog food our own products, and that type of information is not available.
Okay.
So the strategies are two things. One is the geotag tweet itself. We also have an enrichment where if you say I live in Boulder, Colorado, we at least have that. Bring the payload to, it gives you coordinates and everything you need. And the third method is just looking at the tweet text to see if you can recognize what people are talking about and where they're talking about it.
Just two more things real quick. I was curious about the dashboard, but you said you guys eat your own dog food, so that's like a in-house built dashboard, or are you using?
Well, I guess what I'm saying there is I'm using the public-facing APIs to pull the data. I didn't have some internal system that gave me lat longs or anything like that.
And lastly was just a comment about, everybody's talking about how we use this as an emergency warning thing. I think it's interesting. Several years ago, I was living in LA, and there was an earthquake or tremor or whatever they call it there. I had not lived there long enough to say, oh my God, it was big. But people heard about it on Twitter before they experienced the aftershock of the wave. It was amazing. You know, it's happening. The information was communicated instantly.
Yeah.
So yeah, it would be interesting to see if Twitter could turn that into an emergency service.
Yeah.
Also, wildfires in Southern California, Twitter was scary.
Yeah, I just did a data mashup like I showed for the flood around the recent fires in Ventura County, for sure. Yeah. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much. All right, without further ado, Alex, of course. See, I'm trying to picture my slide, and I just totally marked. Alex. Is what? Is your nickname now Brain Fart? Yes. If I can make up nicknames for other people that won't stick, we can do that one too. Thanks, Alex.
Hi, I'm a solutions engineer for a company based out of Silicon Valley called ScreenSense. And we produce an open source platform for moving data around. You can build pipelines. And anyone who works for a tech company in Silicon Valley loves the TV show Silicon Valley. So I was watching Silicon Valley, and this is an actual quote, by the way. He really didn't say that. And so Guilfoyle, he's kind of an asshole, saying this. And he set up this annoying alarm. So whenever the Bitcoin price crosses $9,000, it plays this awful song. And I originally planned to have a working demo, and I was told, no, don't do that because it will all go wrong. So now I think I'm probably going to sing it for you. This might be the first time. Okay. So this is, there's always an element of truth in comedy, I think. And so I downloaded this from Craigslist yesterday. Someone's selling their mining rig for $3 grand. And it says, I can toss in a remote control power switch so that you can toggle it with your phone. And that's what Guilfoyle was wanting to do. And so this shit really happens. His idea is that Bitcoin is volatile. And I knew I was coming to analyze Boulder. And I thought, you know, what slide deck could be complete without some GG block or the previous, you know, you had a slide that was making the same technologies. Cheers to that. Yeah. So this is the song that he played. It's called "You Suffer" from the Palm Death. I bought it, and it's the most expensive price song. Yeah. So I'm not really going to do it justice because I need to grow out my goatee a little bit, but I'm going to have a go at it. It goes, and for some reason it's explicit. I don't know how they can do it explicit. Yeah, so this is me. This is actually the true story. That's my computer. I was really drinking an IPA, and by the time I finished this pipeline, I think I probably had about 3. And so, you can build pipelines using data collector. It's open source. So there's a link at the end. This is the icon for the data collector. So I think this is a really good practice to put a message queue in between stages of the pipeline. So in my case, I have 2 pipelines. The first one is going to collect the Bitcoin prices, and the second one is going to trigger my alarm. So here I have the actual pipeline itself, and if I press play, I'll give you a quick walkthrough. So I found this online. It contains Bitcoin prices. Every 20 seconds, it's going to poll, and now I'm going to I think do a preview, and then you can see the data transform as it goes along. Yeah, so this is the data coming in. It has all sorts of different currencies. It's kind of bloated. I just want the USD price, really. So I'm flattening it out. I'm converting it into a double data type. I'm adding some timestamp. This is when I got it. It's Bitcoin, and I'm publishing it back to Kafka. So yeah, so you have a bunch of different formats. Just so you know, I think a lot of people use Avro for this sort of thing too. Yeah. So there are formats. And here is the alarm itself. So this stage here is picking up the prices, and I'm comparing the current price to the previous price here. I'm using Redis, and afterwards I thought, what a waste of Redis. I should have just done a little Python stage. That was ridiculous, but here it is anyway. I reused something I did for the police, and they were looking at speeding vehicles, and I was comparing like where it was now to where it was a short time ago, and seeing if it broke the speed limit. Yeah, so same kind of idea, converting data types. Now I have an alert status here. In this case, it didn't cross the boundary, and if it did, it will play "You Suffer," and I have set up a RESTful endpoint on my Sonos that only plays "You Suffer." So in a moment, it will, yeah, you'll see that in a moment. These are just the configs. This is actually kind of a little bit boring. I regret putting this in here. So in a moment, we'll get to you'll see the URL. And that is it really. That is my presentation.
Wait for it.
Oh, okay. You won't hear it because there's no audio. So that was the. I already did it once. Yeah, so this is an expression that cross the boundary, and really.
I was going to stand up, but really that was a standing up. I swear. Any questions? Where's our question?
Oh. This is it's open source, so you can download it from here. There's community help, so if you get stuck, you can reach out to me if you want.
So I think you created inadvertently a new metric, which is the 3 IPA metric. So I'm curious, have you done things in 2 IPA or 1 IPA?
Yeah, but they're not as good. There's the big curve. There's a sweet spot around 3.
No. Really looks neat. And if you're more just a data scientist that comes with an independent pipeline that's super useful, is that the center of the product, or are there other like libraries or someone more code oriented that help build these pipelines?
Yes, so there's about, I don't know, 150 origins, destinations, and processors. They'll connect to things like AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, Hadoop, you name it. There are also scripting processors, so you can use Jython, Groovy, and JavaScript if you want to code your own stuff. And there's a movement, I don't know if anybody's a Java guy here, but probably. Yeah. There's a maven archetype. If you want to create your own stages, there's a get started quick maven archetype online that will start everything up for you.
So you know I'm going to tweet that, right?
So as somebody who's been following a lot of articles over the years, why would I go to Airflow? Yesterday, I need to go back some time. So what makes you probably
So Airflow is more of an orchestration tool than a data pipeline tool. There's a bunch of metrics built in. You can deploy this very easily. And so we have a provision of a Kubernetes, for example, if you wanted to scale out, and yeah, that sort of thing.
Thank you. So the data that plugs into it, is it like
you have curated sources that are already set up, or can you plug in whatever you want?
Yeah, so there are connectors for all kinds of different things, and if you can't do it with what's in the box, there's plumbing to connect to whatever you want, really. Why do you have a specific thing?
Oh, no, I was just curious like where the Bitcoin data came from. Like, oh,
I just typed into Google Bitcoin price, and I found like a euro, and I stuck it in that box.
oh, okay. So yeah, and for the well, when I was watching that episode, when he had the alarm, I was like, well, you can make an alarm, you just automatically turn it on and off. You don't need hear the alarm. And, I mean, I assume just doing it to annoy everyone.
Yeah.
But with your platform, could you set something up with that would send a signal automatically? Turn your computer on?
Yeah. So you would have what do you call it? PDU, Power Distribution Unit, and an IP-based PDU. But this was just a form of like technological masturbation, really.
I love ending an evening with the word masturbation. I was Boulder, thank you. So if you couldn't tell, my icebreaker for tonight was inspired by Alex. What was the last show you binge watched? I put these icebreakers up just because we're mostly introverts, right? And so it's nice to have something to talk about that the other person is expecting you to ask. And you can plan your question and just repeat it throughout the night, and then expand your network in the most amazing way. Anyway, we still have a whole bunch of beer. We have the evening, we have the room until 8. Buy the speakers a beer. Buy. Sign Kristen's petition if you like, and enjoy. Thank you for being here.
Huh?
Very specific.
Weeds! Actually, close. Close to